Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this training today. Our schedule, as you see, we're going to 2:15. We'll start with our speakers. I wanted to give a basic overview of what this challenge is. It's a National Geographic 1-minute video challenge, and NASA and Mountain Stewardship and Outdoor Leadership School, we are working with National Geographic to encourage participation of West Virginia youth in this challenge. There are 5 different topics that kids can participate, that they can choose from these 5 different topics. And for Clean the Air, we've invited Mike Egnor, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, to come and speak with us about some of the issues around air pollution in our state. Restore the Ocean. Many times kids choose to work on local issues with creeks, with pollution in our creeks and our rivers. Protect Nature. Lauren Martin will join us later. She works at Mountain Soul School and also Appalachian Peace Paws and has amazing background in working with wildlife in our state. Reduce waste and address climate change. So these are the 5 different topics that students can choose from. It is a 1-minute video, and there are infinite numbers of resources that I will share that National Geographic has put out, as well as some resources that we have put together ourselves. So apologies for how much text is on here, but just to go over that there are students can win $10,000 in prize money. It is an international competition. We did have one of our entries last year make an honorable mention. So the top 35 in the world, which is pretty cool. And the winners get an additional $2,000 to donate to a nonprofit of their choice. Students can work in groups of up to 6 people. All of the students must be between the ages of 13 and 18 when they submit their video. Also very important that all of the materials and pictures must be copyright free, open source, and we can speak more about those details. So Mountain Soul, with support from National Geographic, is offering a stipend of $200 to educators if they can submit 6 videos, or $250 if you can submit 10 or more videos. Additionally, those who participate today, we will send you your own green screen if you want, and Caitlin will talk to us more about how to use that. The competition closes February 7th, and it is very important to know that the Videos for Change website really doesn't work very well about February 5th to February 7th, so I would aim for earlier in the week. The requirement to get the stipend from National Geographic is to watch this video or attend this workshop, to have at least 6 students make a video. We need to get verification through email that the video has been submitted, and a $50 bonus if you can get more than 10 videos. Also, feedback from our students was that they would really like to have a more local way to celebrate all of the work they put into these videos. So we are going to have a film festival, May the 4th be with you. That's such an awesome idea. At Fairmont for all of the participants in West Virginia, and we'll have giveaways and prizes at a local level. Over to you, Todd. Anything to add?
No, NASA is a proud partner to help support this event, try and get the word out. And also we'll be responsible for, the May the 4th festival at Fairmont State University. So thanks for involving us in this project. And I also have a background in technology education and video editing. So I'm also a mentor resource for any schools that would like any help.
Awesome. I guess I did forget to introduce myself. But I am Jen Osha. I'm the director of the Mountain Stewardship and Outdoor Leadership School. That's what I got. Okay, let's see. Any questions at all before we move forward? I did rush through a bit of this. Okay. Well, Mike, are you ready? Are you ready to go? Could you take it from here?
I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, let's go to screen share. If I can get there. Oh, here we go. All right. So tell me if you see the partial presentation on my screen.
Yep.
And then I'm going to set it up to the full presentation. All right, we good to go?
Yep. Looks good.
All right, my name is Mike Egner. I'm the Air Toxics Coordinator from the state of West Virginia DEP. 26 years of experience, graduated from Marshall or West Virginia Tech chemical engineering degree. Got my master's in environmental engineering from Marshall Graduate College. And I'm here to talk to you both about cleaning the air and partially about um, climate. I brought in with me Gene Kukari. He's our small business assistance program. We're going to switch out a little bit. And again, we're from the Division of Air Quality. What I was asked to talk about was issues in West Virginia with air quality. So EPA looks at 6 different types of air pollutants, and I'm going to go through what those are. And if you have concentrations or levels that are below which you are said to be in attainment for those requirements, National Ambient Air Quality Standards or NAAQS, West Virginia is the 16th state in the country to be in attainment with all of those levels. There are primary standards, which are for human health. There are secondary standards for visibility, for public welfare, vegetation, and other things. So to talk about the issues that we have with West Virginia air quality, we're in attainment for issues that we're looking at. Chemical plants, I could talk about ethylene oxide, but students wouldn't be able to do projects on their end that would be able to make a direct difference with that. So I'm going to try to talk about some things that they can work on. Again, here are 3 of the pollutants listed for air quality: carbon monoxide, lead, and nitrogen dioxide. The primary standards I talked about for human health, they have different averaging times. And the reason they do that is if you have an 8-hour standard, if you think about when people leave to go to work, people come home from work, that's your 8-hour standard. And a 1-hour standard is just for any hour out of the day. So there's different concentrations for that. Lead, you've got those secondary standards that I talked about for visibility or vegetation or things like that. Again, we're in attainment with these 3. The other 3 are ozone, particulate matter or smoke, and I'm going to talk more about particulate matter, and sulfur dioxide. And again, those are the concentrations, those are the timeframes that we're looking at to see if West Virginia is in attainment. And I've got links for everything in the slides in case you want to learn more about it. So for this Slingshot challenge, we talked about some suggestions that students could actually do. One of the big ones that you can do is plant some trees. You know, planting trees absorbs some of the smoke or particulate matter. It takes in some of the carbon dioxide, ozone, sulfur dioxide, NOx. You know, all the things that I just talked about. They do a great job of taking in these airborne particulates. They filter out the particulate matter. You get some chemical transformation going through the different processes. And of course, we know the trees release oxygen, and you got some microbial action in the soil. So planting trees is one of the best ways that these students could actually hands-on be able to improve the air quality in the state. I'm going to turn this over to Gene to talk about the different types of trees that we have and how they are prevalent in West Virginia.
Hello, I'm Gene Kokary. I've worked here at the DEP for 35 years. So how's this work out? Anyway, so some of the things when you're talking about these projects, I mean, not only do having some project, 1 minute's not much time, but where you're cleaning the air, protecting nature, and addressing climate change, some of that can be handled if you have some sort of project that involves plants. And on this list here, they show not only that obviously plants take in CO2, but they also absorb different pollutants. So just to go over a couple of the plants here, English oaks are actually in Pennsylvania and Ohio, but in West Virginia, there are several oak species. There's red oaks, which are one family, and there's scarlet oaks and black oaks, pin oaks, which keep their leaves on all winter, if you ever notice. There are white oaks. So the white oak species in West Virginia are white oak, chestnut oak, and swamp oak. So you kind of want to keep, you don't want invasive species, and you want to keep the species in West Virginia that you can have that grew here originally. Eastern white pine grows here, and it takes care of those pollutants, as you can see. Red maple grows here. Honey locust is the locust with the big long thorns on it. It's a native species. Green ash, I'm not so sure is a good fit here because there's white ash is almost being wiped out by the emerald ash borer, but it might be that green ash is like Chinese chestnut and it somehow survives. So one of the things is plants kind of go with this 1 minute sort of theory in that you're talking about climate change, and climate change, as you can see by this chart, this is called the hockey stick chart. So you can see that CO2 has risen dramatically in the last half century. Matter of fact, it's projected to reach 422 parts per million this year. It was only 311 parts per million in 1950, and that means that, as you see on this chart, it's 50% higher than pre-industrial levels. So obviously that's man-made to some extent. Plants take in the CO2, so therefore they're considered a carbon sink. One of the things you notice about this is if you've done, and I'm sure some of you are biologists, but if you went out, we used to do core samples on old growth red spruce in Cumbraebro forest, and you would take a core sample and the growth rings would be real close together. But as you get further and further into time, now the growth rings are further apart and it makes the wood less dense. So as anybody that's ever bought a 2x4 at Lowe's will know, it's almost like lifting up a piece of balsa wood compared to if you got a piece of the same wood from an old house. And therefore, plants love CO2, and the more CO2 there is in the atmosphere, the more they grow. Now, having said that, one thing that loves CO2 in the atmosphere are vines. So if you've noticed in your yard, whenever I was a kid, poison ivy would grow up the side of a tree. And now it grows everywhere. And so doesn't Virginia creeper, and so doesn't ivy, and that little ground ivy that's in your yard. But one of the other things I want to talk about is an invasive species, kudzu. And I don't know if you've ever seen kudzu, but it originated in Japan, and it was brought over in the 1930s when they had the Dust Bowl to stop erosion. And so there was a guy that drove up from Georgia in the 1930s selling these vines in the back of his car, and it does stop erosion, but it also pretty much covers up everything else. So if you've ever seen these kudzu vines covering all the other trees and bushes, you'll notice that obviously the trees that are grown beneath them aren't putting out leaves and aren't carbon sinks anymore. And the interesting thing about that is kudzu is a net greenhouse gas producer, strangely enough. And the reason it is because it releases nitrogen from the soil. Scientists are shedding new light on how invasion of exotic plant species affects the ability of soil to store greenhouse gases. So here you're getting a double whammy in that the kudzu is a net greenhouse gas emitter, and it's killing and covering the leaves that would be the greenhouse gas sink. So, and you can see some of that information here. Kudzu invasion results in the release of 4.8 metric tons of carbon annually. This is the same carbon emitted biannually, consuming 540 million gallons of gasoline. So one of the things that might be interesting for students to look at is maybe not only growing trees and growing plants, but eradicating kudzu. And by the way, in the New River Gorge in West Virginia, the Park Service brought in New York goats to battle kudzu. They will eat kudzu and they love it. And so it'd be interesting to see a 1-minute video on goats eating kudzu.
Thanks, Gene. So let's talk about green spaces. So a green space is an urban land covered vegetarian of any kind. Again, we're going to put out more plant material, which also helps with trees, with sun. One of the problems with the urban areas is that sunlight heats up everything when you're talking about concrete. I don't know if there's school areas that you can turn into green spaces, or if you could find areas. There's plenty of farms in West Virginia that you could be able to work with this to get the benefits, again, of getting those pollutants out of the air and putting more oxygen into the air. There's green buildings, so you could do this to the side of a school, and there's a lot of different types. This is only one example. Again, there's 10 ways on the link at the bottom about how to do a green building. But you can put some plants on the side of a school or areas, and again get that CO2 taken in and the other pollutants, and being able to have gardens. Just these aren't even underground, so there's again 10 different ways that you can do that. Composting. Composting is something a lot of people have heard of, but not many people know much about. So food takes about 22% or 1/5 of solid waste going to the landfills. And with the landfills, that wasted food, 58% of methane emissions from landfills comes from wasted food. The U.S. discards more food than any other country in the world, about 60 million tons every year. And you can get volatile organic compounds, VOCs, nitrogen dioxide, ammonia, and carbon dioxide. The latter two are greenhouse gases, come from the food waste from landfills. So type of projects. These are some examples of affordable compost bins that you can put, for the students at their homes. You could do it with the schools. There's some issues with health and safety issues, I've been told. If there's a school near Marshall University has a program. They have a sustainability department to put to have your food waste sent to their commercial composter. And that here's several examples of where you can buy it and the prices that are, to me, it seems like it's affordable. That you can compost your home waste. And what do you get from that? You get good, rich dirt that you can use. So here's some examples of things that you can add to your compost pile: fruit and vegetable scraps, grass clippings, coffee grounds, paper tea bags, no metals, eggshells, dry leaves, plants, shredded paper, shredded cardboard, untreated wood chips are all good to be used for a compost pile. Here's what's to avoid in a compost pile: meat, fish, bones, cheese, fats and oils, cooked foods. I'm not going to go through the rest of the list, but you can see what can be and cannot be put in a compost pile. And again, this is projects that you could either put in a school or have a student be able to distribute some of these compost machines to other ones that are interested in doing it. I want to talk about purple air. Purple air is a particulate matter sensor. You could put this sensor at your school to measure in real time, if you have Wi-Fi, the concentrations of particulate matter or smoke. This would generate interest in the kids. They would see these purple air sensors. They would be like, I'm wondering what our air looks like. It would encourage them to go to airnow.gov, which is EPA's website, to show what the particulate matter numbers look at throughout the state. And you could see specifically the purple air at fire.airnow.gov. which would also lead you to looking at the air quality index. And I'm going to talk about what the air quality index was. And by having a vested interest or becoming aware of your area, it might make students think about ways that they could reduce particulate matter in their area. Maybe compete against other schools to see how you could get those numbers to be down versus one or the other. Now, having said that about purple air, please take those numbers with a grain of salt. The issues with purple air, they're not completely accurate. Here at DEP, we have continuous monitors that we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort to make sure that those numbers are completely accurate. So just because it says something on a calculator on a purple air doesn't exactly mean that it's 100%. It's just to encourage the students to look and become invested where they're at. The sensors can show up to twice the actual amount. They don't have calibration curves when you have higher concentrations. If you think of all the wildfire smoke that came in from California or from Canada, we got several complaints in our office about wildfires. Not that we can do anything about it, but people are aware because the air is so clean now versus what it used to be, that once smoke starts filling up, people start taking accountability. So if you want continuous, you need Wi-Fi capability, which if you're near a school, you're going to have that. Or you can have SD cards so you can upload it periodically, which is more of a physical challenge to do that. Sighting criteria. If you were to put a purple air next to a hood vent or a smoker or fire, it's going to cause numbers that are higher than what should be reported. Cannot be used for regulatory purposes. So if you think you're going to put one at your school and there's a facility nearby that you're thinking is causing the numbers to go higher, you can't call us and say, hey, we've got these numbers, go issue a violation, go put them out of business. They're for informational purposes. But again, with the students seeing them right there, looking at an app on their phone to see what their air quality looks like, would encourage them to take more value in what they have around them. The website airnow.gov will take them to the website to show them not only the purple air monitors, but also our continuous WVDEP air monitors that do have the better, more accurate numbers. So here's the air quality index that I talked about, airnow.gov. I took this at 9 a.m. this morning. It measures both particulate matter, 2.5 microns, or we're talking about the diameter of hair around. We're also talking about ozone. So you can see in the yellow areas, we've got moderate areas and green is the good areas. So what does that chart look like? So if we're in the green area, and if you remember those NACS numbers I said, or those concentration numbers, if you get between 0 and 50% of those numbers for particulate matter, you're in the green mode. If you get between 51% to 100% of those NACS numbers that I showed, that's in the moderate zone. So if you're in the yellow zone, you can look at the description of air quality. It says it's acceptable, but there might be some risk for unusually sensitive to air population. Orange, if you're over 100% of the NACS level to 150%, then sensitive groups may be affected. We've got unhealthy at 151% to 200%, and then purple and maroon. And I don't know that we've ever seen areas in the red. Never seen areas in the red before. So again, we've got decent air quality in West Virginia. So some other suggestions to do, this is more to do with outreach, and this is more to do with the students being able to get other students to buy in to these projects. But here's some examples. Energy efficiency in the home. So although the students aren't paying the electric bills and may not care as much, it is something that you can look at the reductions. And one of the biggest contributors to air pollution in our state of West Virginia is from coal-fired power plants. And by using less electricity in the home, you're burning less coal, less natural gas, and being able to improve the air quality. So energy efficiency. You can call up the electric company and they will come out for free and look over your home and find ways that you can reduce your energy output. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them that the electric company will try to save them money, but it's true that they will come out and assess your home. The amount of waste going to the landfills, I talked about food. If there's other things that can be reduced. Single-use plastics, we use them all the time. My brother in California spends 10 or 15 cents for a grocery bag now to try to reduce that. Everybody talks about trying to recycle your plastic bags. It's 4 times more expensive to recycle a plastic grocery bag than it is to make a new one. So we want to stop using them altogether. Recycling, if you can encourage it at the schools that you're at and at your home. Now, keep in mind that all the counties don't take paper or glass or certain types of plastics, so you have to identify what those are. You can do, people talk about the 3 R's, and I'm sure they do it in the classroom, but you can do a deeper dive into what you can reduce, what you can reuse, what you can recycle, and have actual examples that you can talk to other students about what they can do. And I thought of a project that you could do is have different students just bring in items that they're not going to use anymore and get their artistic talents together and see if they can make something new, something useful, that they can reuse it somehow and have some kind of contest to see who does the best job. Again, other videos or put up posters in the schools or have class discussions to talk about the schools. If you want to talk about indoor pollution, radon in basements, if you don't have good ventilation, you're going to have problems with radon. So radon kits you can get at Lowe's. They're not expensive to look at, especially in the basement. Again, I talked about the energy efficiency from the electric companies and programmable thermostats. I can pull up an app on my phone right now, and give me 1 second. And this is showing the temperature inside my home. It's set at 67 degrees. Now, if I'm going to leave here in an hour and go home, I can turn it up or turn it down to have it comfortable when I get there. It's on a schedule. If I'm away, I can have it set for a certain amount of time. And I spend on about 2,000 square feet on a graduated or a level bill. My electric bill is $185 and I'm all electric. And a lot of that, not a lot of it, it has helped from this programmable thermostat. And that is what we have. And I don't know that if you guys have any questions for Gene or I.
Thank you so much. I learned so many things. That was awesome. Also, that list of projects, there's a lot of fantastic doable ideas in there. So thank you very much. So before we open for questions, for all the educators out there, one of the hardest parts of this video challenge is helping kids come up with, like, and supporting them to figure out what problem they want to address and how to solve that problem. So the idea in part behind this training is to help as educators to have some ideas in our heads that we have that relate to issues going on in West Virginia, and so many ideas from this. Thank you. So do we have any questions? We have time right now for questions regarding everything we just learned. No questions. Okay. Well, if you have any young people in your life, I encourage you to work with them to submit a video, because you sure came up with a lot of good ideas. I had no idea about the kudzu also, like that I was looking at people's faces and reactions when, like, Caitlin, I saw your face, I saw Todd and I were both like,
I was completely surprised. If you drive on 60 or 61, it's just flooded with kudzu. And I thought any leafy green would be a carbon dioxide absorber, but as I learned from G today, not only does it emit it, it cuts off all the trees that would be able to absorb the carbon dioxide, which just amazes me.
And also about the poison ivy, like we have been noticing, because we're outside a lot with our school, and we've been noticing that the poison ivy has been growing differently over like the last 5 years. So that was also, I mean, it's almost like it's its own tree now.
And it gets big woody. Well, and remember this. So remember the leaves of 3, leave it be, leaves of 5, stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
So actually leaves of 3, leave it be. There are 3 plants in West Virginia that have 3 leaves that look like poison ivy. The first of which is poison ivy, which has a reddish tinge. The second of which is blackberries, which
Yes.
thorns. And the third of which is elephant's ear, and it has a smooth margin as opposed to a ragged margin. So you obviously want to keep your kids away from poison ivy because it's people are horribly allergic to it, and it's everywhere.
It is. What is your maybe a side note, but I mean this is pretty relevant. Do you have a suggestion about poison ivy removal?
Well, one of the things is I learned the hard way whenever I was growing up. I was working for a school in the summer, and I got in a patch of poison ivy, and I was sitting at lunch scratching my legs, and the janitor came by and said, "I can fix that." I said, "Oh, sure." And so he went and got a bottle of Clorox and poured it on my legs, and I screamed for about 5 minutes. But actually, Clorox, if you have a poison ivy and you scratch and you put Clorox on it, it will fix it. But one of the things that you can do about poison ivy is, and I wouldn't say to do this as kids, but like another thing is, if you go to trees, so like if you see a tree and it's got a big giant vine of poison ivy on it, and you identify the leaves of 3, and you'll look, and I mean, sometimes the roots are as big as your fist, right? So you can take a machete and chop a section of that vine out from the bottom, and then you killed the vine that's going up the tree, which is taking away nutrients from the soil for the tree. So you're helping the tree and you're getting rid of the poison ivy at the same time.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that there's a number of students here that the amount of poison ivy on the property has become quite an issue for being able to get outside. So that was really interesting. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, both of you. That was an awesome presentation.
Thanks for having us, and you've got our contact information if anybody else wants to follow up.
Okay.
We'd be happy to.
Those are great ideas. Thank you so much. Okay, before we go on to our next presenter, I wanted to take a minute and situate us with the project again. So we talked about how there were the 5 different areas of topics. Well, actually, our last presentation covered many of those different topic areas, which was fantastic. And I also just mentioned that sometimes the hardest part is to help the kids come up with an idea. So let's see if I can share my screen. Share my screen. So I wanted to show you the resources that National Geographic has put together for educators and participants. In part to explain why sometimes the hardest part is just coming up with the actual idea. So you see we have this quick start guide, which gives all the information in one page, where you have to go. You have to register in 2 different places. You have to register on the National Geographic website and on the Videos for Change website. That information is all easily found here, and I'll share this link in the chat. There's the Educator Toolkit, which is massive. So any questions that you have regarding like how to storyboard, what technology to use, how to record it, it's all in this toolkit. Also, Jason, who has been talking to you in chat, is also on this presentation. He's done amazing work with the kids in terms of making the videos, how to record the sound, how to submit the video. Getting the video down to the correct size is also can be problematic, and I suggest not leaving that till the end. You'll see there's also a participant toolkit. And this is our third year doing this. And in my experience, many of the students have been overwhelmed by the toolkit. Some of my students that are like really excited, they're like, yes, I have 25 pages of details of how to do this. But we made another presentation, which I will share and email after this, of a sort of an easier, less intimidating way to approach this, excuse me. But this participant toolkit has all the information that your students could possibly need. Tips for repeat participants. I don't think that's so much an issue because I think most of you are coming into this for the first year, but this is for students who submitted already. And then finally, this is new. This is exactly how they select the winners. And one example, which was new to us, is they had mentioned that they give points for students looking up current National Geographic explorers that are doing work that they're interested in. But now it is clear that they actually do give points for students finding somebody already doing the work they're doing and relating that back to their idea. Let's see. So this is the main page. One thing that is also very exciting is that when you have those kids that are really excited about this project, that there are solution design labs where they get to work with National Geographic explorers in English and in Spanish. And you can see that we still do have 2 more left on January 14th and January 22nd. There are also, let's see, the redesign labs are for repeat, so I don't think that's as relevant. And we've missed all of the educator info, excuse me. But for all practical purposes, Jason and Todd and I can be your educator info people because we've done this before. So there are lots of resources that already are there for all of the details beginning to end. The hardest part is often working with your students to help them figure out what they care about and how that can relate to this project. And then helping them to come up with an idea. And then I think probably the most exciting part for me is the realization that their idea is going to be listened to, that people care about what they think, that, you know, as a West Virginia young person, they get to get their idea out internationally and people are going to listen to it. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking and Caitlin, over to you.
Awesome. Let me get this set up real quick.
With your cool green screen.
There we go. Sweet. Make sure, can everyone see the webcam? Is it large enough? Okay, cool. Awesome. So my name is Caitlin Nice. I am an AmeriCorps Vista that works with the NASA ERC down at the IV&V facility in Fairmont, West Virginia. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use a green screen, a fun videography tool for your educational videos, because green screens are really cool and they can add a lot of flair to your video, but also can be really helpful in explaining difficult topics. And so what I have here is kind of a setup that you might end up using for your green screen videos. I'm using my webcam, a green screen, and in the background, all of this is my screen. It's actually PowerPoint. So I can point to locations on my PowerPoint and talk about things as I go through this. So I'm using OBS Studio right now to put it all together. But if you don't want to do it in real time, you can also use another free software, which is Clipchamp, which you can use if you have a Windows. There's probably also a Mac equivalent somewhere out there. I forgot to do some more research on that side of things, but there are video editing softwares out there that will help you with this. It is very popular and it's really easy once you get past the setting up of the green screen. So when is it a good time to use a green screen? Because there are many great uses for green screen, and then there's some not great uses for green screen. But what green screen's good at is teaching with motion, and it's great for kinesthetic learners and teachers. So I am a kinesthetic learner, so this is great for me because I can teach using kinesthetics, and I can point to things on the screen, and it's great. So how do you do this then? So what do you need? So first of all, you need a solid color background, and it doesn't actually need to be green. So I know that Jen is handing out green screens for those who would like them, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a green as long as it's a solid color background that's not going to interfere with whatever you're presenting on a video. Most common colors are like blue, red, and green, but if you have a smooth wall at your school that is all solid color, you can probably use that as a green screen. But you got to play around with it and make sure that, in the software that you can make it work. So another thing you need is diffused lighting at some capacity for quality. So I don't know if you can see these tiny little white pixels right there, but that's actually a reflection off of my green screen right now, as well as you can probably see the shadow right here. So you want to make sure that you don't create highlights and you don't make shadows on your green screen because that's going to affect your quality. My green screen is actually pretty wrinkly. I'll show you that actually right now. So there is some margin of error that you can have with a green screen. So you can have wrinkles and whatnot, but to make it diffused enough to where you're not creating those really, really harsh shadows. This back on. Okay, there we go. You're gonna need a camera, whether it's a webcam, that's what I'm using right here, right now. You can use a phone camera or just any other camera that you have. And you need to have software that does the chroma key feature because not all video editing software has chroma key. And that is the term that essentially in software lingo is green screen. So you have a lot of software out there that is able to do chroma key, but you want to make sure that you have it because when you do editing, you might not have it if you are using a green screen. And then I wanted to point out you need to practice because this is something that's not always the easiest to set up and can take some time and some patience with because you're going to be tweaking little things. You're going to be like, oh, I want a little bit more of that, a little less of that. And maybe this is not quite the color, for the green screen or, it's going to take some practice. And there's a lot of fun things you can do with green screen that you didn't know you could do. And you just got to play around with it. And the kids have a great time with green screen. I've done a few activities with them where they can take pictures of them in a background. Kids love it. It's a lot of fun to do. And it's a great tool for education as well. So it's kind of reiterating what I said before of how to set it up. Like, are you using a webcam? Are you using a camera? That's important to know. Want to make sure that you have enough green screen or enough of a background to fill in your camera view. So if your background is really, really far away, you want to make sure that you have a larger area to cover. And if you're close up like me, you can use less green screen. And then making sure the lighting is not going to be harsh. So areas with classrooms that have those overhead lights, and lots of different areas of the ceiling, that's a lot better than going outside and there's the sun. You want to make sure you don't have any one single point light that's really, really, really bright and it's going to cause shadows. And then we're talking about OBS in particular. So OBS is what I'm using. It's called an open, well, it stands for Open Broadcaster Software. So it's typically something that you use for live streaming. So YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitch are all good examples of what this software is typically for, but it's got a lot of powerful tools like recording and setting up filters and green screen. So you can do both webcam and camera on OBS. It is easier with with webcam. And camera, you're going to want to use the other software called Clipchamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly pull up OBS and kind of share a little bit about what's going on and how I'm doing this right now. If I can get back to my Zoom. Here we are. Share. Okay, I am now screen sharing. Does that look good? Okay, cool. So, so here is OBS. There's a lot of things going on. Don't worry, there's only a few things that we're going to be looking at, and that is going to be the sources, and that's going to be the controls. So there's two things going on here. There's two sources. Right now, there's me, the webcam, and then there's my screen, the background. Those are the two sources. You can have tons of sources, but those are not necessary for what we're doing here right now. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. So you don't need to worry about the screens here. I'm just going to refresh kind of what's going on. So I'm going to add my webcam, which is a video capture device. That's what a webcam is. And you would create a new video capture device, but I'm going to use an existing one. I'm going to add my webcam, and I am now gigantic. Hi. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh yeah. And then, so my screen doesn't cover my entire camera, but because I'm not really using this section of my camera, I can just hide it and put it away. So there's still something going on here. There's still something there. There's something in the software that knows that this area is green. And I'm going to show you how it does that using a video and a pre-existing video, not something that's based off of the webcam. This is how you would do the green screen off of something that's already a video that's been made. So I'm going to add a media source, which is a video. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it my animal, because we're talking about environmental stuff. But if I had known we were doing climate stuff, I would have done something with, I don't know, weather or something. But I'm going to loop it for this particular example. And I'm going to add my friend here, the ostrich. So he is green screened. I'm going to move myself in front real quick. There we are. So there's green screen. There's a bunch of stuff here that's green, and we want to get rid of that. So if you go ahead and go to the webcam, right click on it, we're gonna add a filter. So I'm sure you've heard of filters before on a camera, like on Instagram or on your phone camera. Pretty much a filter changes that input that's coming on the camera and then outputting something different. So we're gonna add a filter to say, hey, I want to get rid of this green. Hold on, filters. I'm clicking on the wrong thing. That's what's going on. There we go, filters. All right, so we have this green, and we're going to click this plus button under the effect filters, and we're going to add the chroma key. We're going to add that, and it gets rid of our green. And you can tweak this around. This is the practice part where you can change all of these little knobs. These all do different things. But for this purpose right now, this is perfect. And if you would like more assistance with messing around with this, I'm more than happy to help out in any way that I can to kind of accommodate for whatever situation is you're in. If you're not using a green screen or not, I'm going to click that out. But so yeah, I have my ostrich here. I can point to different parts of the ostrich and talk about you know, its beak or its feet. And, you know, this would be really cool to have a picture of, you know, a plant or something that like, hey, I want to talk about this, you know, part of the plant. This is what this does. And, you know, how this could impact our project that we're working on. And yeah, so, and then I'm going to move over to Clipchamp, which is the video editing software, and it is not moving over. Let me go ahead and screen share. something different. Great. Hold on. How do I get back and share something different? Okay. Okay, here we go. There it is. Share. I want Clipchamp. Share. Still not sharing it. Stop share. Let's try this. There we go. Sweet. All right. So this is Clipchamp. This is a video editing. Wait, is it still not doing it? I thought I had it. It's fighting me right now.
You're just trying to get Zoom to show the right screen?
No, I am. I'm clicking on the thing that I want. I'm clicking on the window that I want, but it's not letting me. Oh, I know why, because I'm silly. That's why. Here. Is this gonna work? I know why. I know why, because I'm sharing my webcam, and that's what's going on. Oh, I gotta do some quick display capture. Sure. It's gonna go BenQ. There we go. Okay. Cancel. No, wait. BenQ. Okay, there we go. So, all right. So here is Clipchamp, and I'm gonna push Zoom over here, and just don't worry about the closed captions right now. So we can move our ostrich friend over to our video editing software in Clipchamp, and this is where you would add your chroma key in a video editing software. So you can see that it is the video that is in the video editing software. We can add what is called an effect in Clipchamp. I know that's a little confusing since OBS calls it a filter. In Clipchamp, it's called an effect. If you look up green screen, it's going to add the green screen effect, and then you can export it at the specific resolution that you would like. And you can add more items to your video editing. That's more on the side of where you would go to the resources that's online to see how you would incorporate audio, incorporate video. So that is to the extent of what green screen can do and how it can be used for education. So that is all I have for now. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, thank you so much. I would like to say, certainly not silly, so organized and intelligent you are. Zoom is tricky.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was really cool. I really learned a lot, and I understand all of the ways that we could use a green screen and make this more accessible, I think, for a lot of our students. One of my students actually, Todd, you'd mentioned this to me, and then I had not really, I was like, I don't know what a green screen is. And then one of my students the other day was like really excited about the video project, which always makes my heart happy, you know, when you a lot of the kids are like, well, yeah, I'll do it. But then your one is like, I'm going to win, you know? And he was like, I need a green screen. I need to know how to do this. I was like, haha, I think we can do that. So yeah, I understand being able to point at things and incorporate them seems like a different way of learning and sharing information. So thank you very much.
And it's super fun too. Kids love it.
Yeah. That fun is good. I like
fun
that.
is great.
Okay. Well, let's see if I can share my screen. Okay. Let's see, I got it. Okay, share. Okay, so we have about 15 more minutes until our next presenter. And what I'd like to do now is to bring you all through a presentation that Katie, who's also with Mountain Soul, that she put together for the students. That was this presentation has a little bit less information and details, a little bit more about the flow of it. And we use this one kind of to get the kids started. So here's our 5 topic areas. Also, in my experience so far, we've never had trouble making a student's idea relate to one of these 5. So remember that you have us all the time. Like, you can email us or call us. We can certainly help you to figure out how to make this relate. Okay. So again, this is for the actual point of view of the student. So when they're having trouble getting started, one of the things that we like to do is ask them, what are their favorite things? What are they most interested in? So to provide a specific example, one of our students is a welder, and he wanted to make a video and couldn't think of anything. So we asked him what was something that really upset him. And his answer was that he really was upset when he saw trash in creeks and rivers, which is definitely upsetting. And I hear that a lot from our kids. So remember, that can go back into the ocean one also. It also can be reduce waste. So I was like, okay, right. So we got, is there a polluted area you want to clean up? What is one of your favorite things to do? Well, he really likes welding. So we came up with this idea. He came up with this idea. He went outside, he looked at all the trash. He was thinking about the impacts of this trash. Well, then he realized that like a lot of the trash in the creek was actually metal. And so his idea that he came up with was to clean up and encourage other kids to clean up metal and other things that he could weld, to go and get those things out of the creek, and then to weld them into artistic sculptures, and then to sell them to raise money for the local watershed. So that was his Slingshot video, and it came completely from his interests and his passions. So almost anything, if you just start with what they care about. So we get them thinking about what they care about, and this is just research. What environmental impacts does your topic have? What are other people doing to help with your issue? This is a really good one, because then they can go and get some ideas. Like, has anyone else ever thought of this issue? What also, are there any Slingshot educators that are working on it right now? What do you think should happen? What is their idea? What is their gut feeling? And then once we get to the create, there's so many more resources. Usually once you get to this part, at least I feel like it's a little bit easier to get them going. But we have these video editors. A lot of them just use their phones. Jason, feel free if you want to jump in at any point here. These are the steps. Oh, another thing to add is that a lot of kids don't want to be in the video. They're embarrassed, or they don't like how they look, or there's all these different things. So of course you always have your kids that were really excited about being, on the video. But if the kids don't want to be on the video, at least half of our videos never have the kid's face. They can put up pictures, they can speak over the video, they can just do just audio. They can even, if they're worried about their voice, we had a couple of students who then they changed how their voice sounded. So just something else, when you're working with your students, you can really find a way to match where each one of them are at. Um, Storyboard, this is a really nice tangible thing. In the educator toolkit, there's a storyboard. Like there's sheets that you can literally just print out, and then they can sketch out their video like a comic strip. It takes us about 6 weeks, maybe meeting once a week at an hour at a time for our class here. And then we also, go to different places and can work with kids. But the storyboard step is always a nice one to go through because they can think about what they want to get in their video. They can also think about what pictures they want, and they can look on on Unsplash, the places you can find pictures that are public source, open source. Start filming. Usually they usually use their phones. Let's see, still photos. Recording audio. So when Jason does this, he has his own little recording, he sets up a separate place to be able to record the students. So we have a little room off of our main room so we can have kids working, and then we can have them go back and record their audio. Editing and refining. Making it fit into 1 minute is very difficult. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. So getting a draft down and then cutting it down to a minute. Also, please, the last slide, if somewhere on that last slide, if you could put a reference to Mountain Soul, even just like a little logo, that when it goes in and Nat Geo then sees that it was through this outreach, that actually helps us to continue to get funding. We're shooting for 40 videos within the state. And then submitting, there are 2 different places that you need to, submitting the video is at Videos for Change, and there's a place that you register also, which is on the main website. Jason already showed that. Again, please make sure that you leave enough time. Submitting the night before is a bad plan, and a lot of kids always want to do that. Also, if they are not 18 years old, it will require a parent to give permission. And sometimes that takes time. I've seen one student not being able to submit because they couldn't get their parent to say yes before the deadline. And also that they have to be the age between 13 and 18 at the time that they submit the video. Okay, let's see. Any questions before we have our next presenter? Okay, I need just a minute before our next presenter, so I'm going to mute. If anyone has any questions, Todd, if you have anything you want to share, I'll be right back.
So just to eat up some time, and by the way, Caitlin, I was thinking we might have you edit this video before we post it on YouTube.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to take out the part that was scrambling around or anything. But
yeah, so we could trim this clip itself. Anyway, I found an easy and post-COVID tool that people are very comfortable with is Zoom, what we're using right now. And so, I mean, I can throw myself up, on a screen. I can put a backdrop behind me, and I can pull up my presentation, and the recording that comes from Zoom isn't terrible either. So I think that's an option for people to get low-hanging fruit, to get, if the students have topics they want to present, they have information that they can put in, PowerPoint or Google Slides or some other tool they're very comfortable with. They can then just share that as their share for the Zoom presentation. It'll get the video of the person speaking as well and the audio. And so I think that's another possible low cost, no cost approach to getting some video editing. At least in the context of capturing someone presenting information. And 1 minute can go very fast. So one thing we didn't talk about yet, in my background with video editing, is that you always want to have a script. So no one should ever speak, off the top of their head. They should always have everything written down. They should rehearse what they're writing down and what they're going to be presenting. And when it comes to videos, we take it one step further. Is you also want to have a storyboard. And a storyboard would be opening scene is, the logo, maybe it's you pulling a slingshot back and shooting it. And that's your opening slide or your opening, clip. And then next is talking heads, where I talk about the issues that we're facing, in our video today. And then maybe the next clip. So you have these little boxes that you draw a rough sketch of what is going to be happening. And then you might want to also dictate what kind of transitions you use. So if you're doing, for example, PowerPoint, you're having, moving from one slide to the next, you can define if it's going to push across, if it's going to open from a circle in the middle. These transitions are other things that you can detail in your storyboard. How do you get from scene A to scene B? Maybe you zoom in or zoom out or something. Might be ways that, or both. You zoom into my nose and you zoom back out to an elephant or something and hit their nose or so that's your topic you're working on. So these are ideas I think that are consistent with good practice or best practice for video editing, is writing a script, number one, rehearsing that script, making a storyboard, and trying to put as much information in a storyboard as possible prior to recording. So I'd love to get people's ideas. So why don't you go ahead and again, we can delete this stuff. We don't have to have it, but why don't you tell us what ideas you have that you might be considering using for the Slingshot videos? I mean, this will be for your students to decide, but just curious what your thoughts are. Amelia?
I'm going to be honest, I really have not even discussed this with my kids yet. I've got to look through, I teach 7th and 8th grade. So there are several that are 12. So I need to make sure and figure out that I have the right amount of kids that are 13 and would be willing in my STEM team that stays after school to work on something like this.
And here's a question that we can maybe have Jen answer. I know she's pushed back with National Geo on the age, but when do they turn 13? Maybe if they turn 13 by the time the video is submitted.
Right. I'm going to need to check in and see with those kids exactly when. But I know previously I have worked with invasive species with my 8th grade groups and about how to combat that and how to get information to the public in our community that, hey, stop buying these type of plants. How about try milkweed instead in your garden instead of some of the others that are imported?
Yeah, I really love that kudzu talk and that the goats. Imagine how cool it'd be to actually go to New River Gorge and actually get some footage. My friend calls it footy. She's like, get some footy of me of the goats, eating the kudzu, and then you could even interview those folks that we just talked to. And that might be another way to use Zoom, by the way, is if you have experts you want to bring in for a quick clip, you could Zoom screen capture, and record that as they talk about, your question to them if you're going to do something like an interview. Lauren, I think you're the next speaker. Are you ready?
I am, yeah. Hi.
Okay, good, because I was just trying to fill the gap there.
Yeah. But the information that you shared was really awesome, so thanks for that. So I am specifically speaking on ways that kids can protect nature and help nature in West Virginia. And kind of my background, for the most part, has to do with animals and animal rescue. So a lot of my suggestions would be related to that. But it basically kind of like what has been said before, whatever the kids are interested in, you can, starting with what they are passionate about and what they care about is definitely the best way. Like it sounds kind of daunting to be like, okay, we're going to have to come up with all of these topics. But just talking to the kids first really helps. But a couple of specific suggestions that I would have that are kind of like on a kid level regarding animals specifically would be something pretty easy. Encouraging your friends and family and talking about spaying and neutering your pets, especially cats. West Virginia has a really large feral cat population, and I don't know how rural some of you all are, but around, you know, the rural parts even of Mon County where I live, cats are outside, and cats eat a lot of birds and wildlife, and it's also not good for the cats to be, you know, breeding and having these huge populations. It's not good for people either. And there happen to be a lot of resources to spay and neuter, especially feral cats, for free. So they could do a little educational clip on just protecting cats by keeping them inside and also by spaying and neutering them, which protects the environment in the form of the lives of all of the birds and animals that they would hunt, just doing what kitties do in nature. Another one would be a lot of animals being killed on highways. You see like things along the road. And there's a couple that have to do with that. One would be kind of on a bigger scale. There are bridges over roadways or tunnels under roadways. And I know that the West Virginia Herpetological Society has been kind of looking at some possibilities to put pipelines under the roads to help amphibians. But just things that would prevent animals from going into the road. So those bridges over, the tunnels under, but then also something as simple as educating people about not throwing trash on the side of the road, or, you know, food bags or whatever, because even if it's organic, if you throw it near the road, an animal is going to come to the road to eat it. And if that animal gets killed, then something's going to come to the road to eat that. So it's just kind of like this really easy, you know, effect that they can stop. They could also do anything that has to do, you know, if they're really into fishing, for example, anything about not cutting down all of the plants around any body of water would be really helpful. And that also helps amphibians and, you know, fish and everything that lives in the water and uses that as a resource. Talking to their families or to their communities about not using chemicals that are harmful for, you know, to treat their lawns or over fertilizing their gardens. And you can actually do a soil test for pretty cheap or free, depending on where you go. Our extension office will do a soil test for you so you can see what your garden actually needs before you just start dumping things onto it. And that might be a fun activity for kids to do, is to contact them and get that soil test done and then get the results. And then they could have like a, you know, real quick, we only needed XYZ things, so this is what we need for our garden, instead of, you know, something random. Let's see. Well, I guess before I keep telling you things, does anybody have any questions about the stuff that I said so far? Genosha is raising her hand.
Will you talk to them about the work that you do with your venomous snakes also, and maybe there's anything that kids could do to support that work?
Yeah, that's actually the next thing I was going to.
Oh, well, look at that.
Reading minds. So Genosha mentioned talking about the work that I do with venomous snakes. So I volunteer to do rattlesnake surveys for a guy that used to work for the DNR. He's retired. And I don't know how involved and interested everybody is in rattlesnakes in West Virginia, but their populations are declining to some extent because of, you know, habitat loss, but also there are a lot of people that kill them just for existing. And so when we do the snake surveys, we track their locations via GPS monitoring and also mark the specimens with a paint marker, actually. So that we know who we caught, how big they were, and when we caught them. And sometimes we'll go back to places and there used to be a snake there that was there for many years, but then suddenly it's not there anymore. And sometimes we run into people that are also looking for snakes out there. And some of those people do not have great intentions for them. So we have to keep that information fairly secret. But a lot of people, if you were just like, hey, you like rattlesnakes? They'd be like, nope. So one thing that kids could do is just talk about education and respecting animals, even if they don't particularly love them. And that could, go beyond venomous snakes. We of course have copperheads and rattlesnakes here, but you could do it with coyotes. You could do it with fisher cats. You could do it with something as simple as, raccoons that eat your outside cat food or whatever. Anything that, there's a negative human animal relation. The best way to combat that is, and to protect nature and those animals, is to educate people. So learning about a species that you don't know anything about or don't know much about, or maybe that you're afraid of, and then taking that knowledge and saying, oh, well, I thought that, a rattlesnake was going to chase me down the hill and, bite me 17 times because that's what my Uncle Bob's friend's neighbor's cousin's brother told me happened to him when he was a kid. And that's, those kind of stories just get passed down. But really, if you learn about those animals, they don't want to have any interaction with you at all because you're a big predator. Why would they want to do that? Yes, thank you, Jason. That was another thing too. Yay! I'm glad that a lot of the things that I'm saying are things that my friends and coworkers are already talking about. So aside from just learning about them, protecting their habitats specifically, one of the things that happens a lot, and it's more of like, I think, an Instagram trend, where people will stack rocks. They'll make stone cairns or rock sculptures of some kind. And that's actually really bad for everything that lives under big rocks. And there are several animals that, call those areas their homes. One of them being hellbenders, which are in a declining population, of course. How is my phone going off when I muted it? Anyway, cool. So talking about not stacking rocks. I know it's pretty, and I always get told that I'm the wet blanket for saying, this, but talking about the things that need those places to survive, and especially really nice big flat rocks, whether they're in the water affecting, benthic macroinvertebrates or salamanders or fish, or whether they are on land affecting, things like snakes and any terrestrial critters that use those areas as their home. Especially the bigger the rocks in the water, that's more like what your hellbender habitat is going to look like. And then on land, lots of the amphibians, when they overwinter, amphibians too, but reptiles, when they overwinter, there are specific requirements they have for their humidity and temperature levels. And if you move that den area, if you disrupt those rocks, then you might not realize that your art was, causing potentially the death of a whole bunch of animals that are really cool. And we don't want to do that because no one really, most of the time when I talk to people about that, they don't know why you shouldn't do that. And so I talk to the kids here at the Mountain Soul School about, like, if it's your hand, if you hold up your hand, if a rock is bigger than your hand, you probably shouldn't be moving it because something might be living under it. Any questions about that? Also, on that note, I am an avid picture taker of reptiles and amphibians, and I have a ton of photos that I would be really happy to share with anybody so that they don't have to try and get either generic or try to convince somebody to let them go out and look for a rattlesnake.
That's a good idea.
I totally would be happy to share my pre-existing rattlesnake photos. And then on the one more thing, do I have till 3:30 or 3:45?
No, you have until 3:45.
Okay, sweet. Another one that, and if anybody, please let me know if you want me to explain anything in further detail. Another one that I have personal experience with that kids could definitely very easily relate to is fishing line. Everywhere I go around the body of water, oh, sweet. Thanks, Jason. everywhere I go around a body of water, I always look for fishing line, and I almost always find some to pick it up. Fishing hooks also obviously are a hazard for everybody. But I actually rescued a musk turtle, which is a little species we have that's about 5 inches long. They call them stink pot turtles. And I was walking around a state park where there's a lot of fishing and found one that actually had a fish hook in its neck, and it was like hanging out of the water by the fish hook on the fishing line, which was wrapped around a tree. And I mean, this was in October, so I don't know how long that poor thing had been there, but I had to wade out into the water to get him, and he made it. He was okay, but it's just a really great reminder of, you would never have thought that, oops, I lost that, I'll just leave it, no problem. Fishing line can directly affect a species like that. So something as simple as encouraging people to pick up fishing line, maybe trying to get disposal containers for it around in regular places, more than just like a trash can. That would be something that they could do as well. So good, everybody. Awesome, thanks. I'm just like, information. So with regard to animals around your house, that's going to be something I get a lot of questions about that from everybody. Like yesterday, I was talking to somebody about this. What do you do if you have a wild animal that is around your house and it's causing problems? What do you do besides call animal control or a trapper? Because especially if it's a rabies vector species, they're legally required to kill that animal. They can't relocate it because of the issues we have with rabies everywhere. But specifically in West Virginia, there are a lot of pockets of rabies problems. So something that is really fun that might be a good video for somebody that was like sort of a joking kind of a person would be to talk about loving wildlife enough to scare the crap out of it. Because I love wild animals. I'm not feeding them outside my house, because if I feed them outside my house, they're going to want to come up to my porch, and they're going to think humans are safe, and they're going to think that we are a food source. And I'm nice and I love them and I would care for them. But maybe my next door neighbor does not love them. And if you teach that animal that a human porch is a good place to come for food, they're not going to realize it's just your porch. They're going to think that everybody's porch is fine, and they're going to go up there, and that's when they might get into a fight with somebody's cat, or oops, I saw a raccoon out in the daylight, obviously it has rabies, that kind of thing. So love animals enough to not feed them, to not bring them close to you, and not get them habituated to people. And further, there's this thing, so humane hazing is a great wildlife preventative for negative interactions. And it can look like a lot of different things, including, I'm not kidding, I've actually done this. Get a big super soaker, big squirt gun, especially if it has like the pump handle that makes that weird noise. And whenever you see that raccoon, I'm usually saying raccoon because that's usually the thing people have a problem with. Just zap it in the butt with with either the jet setting of your hose or the super soaker and scare it. Or you can there's a thing that makes like a hissing noise. It's like an air canister. You can get one of those. You could flash bright lights.
Pots and pans. You can play music. Like you could literally sit on your porch with a guitar and just play music in the direction of the animals. Just whatever you're doing, keep them from becoming habituated to people, and don't let them be encouraged to seek food from people, even though it's kind of, great and we love possums and everything like that. Then also skunks, do a lot of skunk education. And a lot of people think that skunks will like hair trigger spray you, but they won't. And so we could talk about like, what does a skunk do? How does a skunk, like when you're smelling it, what's going on? How do they handle their babies? Like if you have a skunk family living under your shed, are they going to be there forever? No.
And they have a finite amount of the stinky stuff, so they're not going to waste it just every, like anytime they see you. So they're actually pretty easy ways to avoid getting sprayed by a skunk. I would not suggest doing the water hose thing with a skunk. I've never had to do that, but that would be a situation where I wouldn't suggest the scaring them tactic of humanizing. And then also bats are protected in West Virginia, but a lot of people still have, bats that they don't want in their attic or whatever. And I get a lot of questions about, well, what do we do if a bat is in my house? You can actually call, and since they are protected, calling animal control or DNR, they can give you resources where they usually will not kill that bat unless it has been in an area where a human was. So obviously we want to take safety concerns very seriously, but what do I do if I just happen to have bats in my attic and they're pooping all over the floor? Well, you actually can call somebody who can come and help get that animal out of there. And similar to the skunk situation, or if you have flying squirrels or raccoons, any animal, if you can count how many there are, if it's in your house or under your deck or in your garden or somewhere that you don't want it to be, something that they could do is, talk about how you get the number of animals that you're looking at and when you could do this, because, during baby season would not be the time to do it. But you could just watch them leave. Like if you had a groundhog under your shed or a skunk family, watch them go away and then board that up. Don't let them under there. Yeah. And talking about, kind of on the same note, chicken coops. First of all, raptors are protected, so we can't be, going to war against a hawk that is coming after our chickens. But we can absolutely fortify our chicken coops, and they could definitely do a little project on what does that look like and what kinds of predators go after chickens, and how would you set it up so that your livestock was safe? Because obviously if something is a food source, an animal is going to go to it, just like your porch, just like the road, everywhere, same sort of thing. So what can you do wherever the problem is to take away the food source? And that, could lead you to all kinds of things. Well, what do skunks eat? A lot of bugs, a lot of grubs. They like to dig for things. So if you have yellow jackets and grubs in your yard and you're, around your house, you're probably going to have a skunk coming and conveniently eating those things for you, which is great, unless you have a dog. So you could treat those problems and make the other problem go away, and everybody, is peaceably dealt with, except for the yellow jackets and the grubs. Sorry, guys. But do any of you have like a specific, like any of your kids have a specific interest that you're aware of, or a thing that they, like, could that tie into a lesson that you're doing so that you could learn, collectively about that sort of stuff? We have a class that I wrote called Animal Superheroes, and it's pretty much just about learning about wild animals and how they interact with people, and domestic animals and how they interact with people, and how humans can interact with them in a positive way. So that would definitely be something, kind of cool that could probably touch on a couple of CSOs as well, depending on what you're teaching. All right. Nobody has any questions. Cool. Well, if you do have anybody that's specifically interested in especially the animal end of preserving and taking care of nature, you can definitely get a hold of us, and we can talk about what that animal is and maybe try and get them some guidance. So let's see. Hang on. I have notes. So, oh yeah, and then kind of going away from the animal stuff for a little bit, but still related. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm reading Jason's message. Not necessarily related to animals, but still protecting nature. Trash is a big issue. it's kind of been touched on in a lot of different things, like, you know, the oceans, obviously that's a big issue for protecting oceans as well. But what can people do to make it so that they don't use as much trash? You know, and that could look like reusable grocery totes for the grocery store, so you're not using plastic bags, or you know, those little plastic bags that you get in the produce section when you get grapes or, you know, whatever loose thing. I guess not grapes, that's not a good example, they usually come in a bag. You know, like oranges or apples or something like that. So figuring out little swaps that they could do with their families to use less things that then often end up outside. And making sure that, you know, when you're working with your family, that nobody's leaving trash or things around, you know, accidentally or on purpose. Recycling is a little bit difficult because with that one, there often isn't recycling facilities close by. And if you don't have the kind of the pickup that goes with your trash service, that can be a pretty big barrier. And a lot of people's families might not be super enthusiastic about suddenly starting a huge recycling program. But if there isn't any recycling, maybe if they were really enthusiastic about that, they could try and get that started in their community, either through a facility, you know, around somewhere where they could put recycling containers, or talking to the trash company to see if they could start it with that as well. Sorry, checking my notes again. Oh yeah, okay. And I think probably running a little bit short on time here, so do a couple more. When sort of related to the stone cairns thing, I am gonna take a bow. I kick over stone cairns. Sorry, folks. I love artwork and that's beautiful, but I don't love encouraging people to do that. And I will definitely put flat rocks back in the water. I'm a little artwork destroyer. But speaking of cairns, because the thing that comes up when I talk about those, especially on land, people will be like, well, what if they were using it to mark a trail? In the specific case that I had that come up where it really was being used to mark a trail, it was being used to mark a trail that led to an overlook where there were a ton of rattlesnakes. And I was like, I'm not sure that I really want people to be going and hanging out and picnicking at the overlook with a ton of rattlesnakes. That's probably not the safest overlook for people. Also, it's really steep. But in that, you know, on that note, sticking to the established trails when you are out hiking, you know, I mean, obviously, if like when we teach kids navigation, we do some off-trail work, but we also talk to them about not stomping through all of, you know, stomping on all the vegetation and kind of being careful, and everybody using the same area when they're, you know, if you're bushwhacking, kind of going through the same spot. But sticking to established areas and not, you know, making a shortcut through, you know, an established trail if you're out hiking somewhere. That could be something as well, because a lot of the time, especially if it's like a wetland habitat and there's a boardwalk. There's a boardwalk so you don't get wet, but there's also a boardwalk so you're not trampling all over sensitive ecosystem and sensitive plants and things that take a really long time to grow. We actually had during COVID, we had some really interesting remediation sorry. We have an area where which we call the Moon, and it's a big open bare spot at the top of one of the hiking trails. And it used to be all kind of dirt in a big circle, and so we kind of called it the Moon. But during COVID, when there weren't people running around up there, that area started to regenerate and regrow, and we got this little complex mixture of plants and fungi and lichens growing, and they formed a biocrust. We had someone do a video on the biocrust, right? Two videos on the biocrust. So the biocrust is this really awesome pre-plant thing. Like if you think about the environmental succession and what happens when you clear an area, which plants come in first, and then the little shrubs, and then finally eventually the trees. Well, before all of those happen, biocrust starts, and that's what enables other plants to grow. So now we have some grasses and some little trees even up on the moon, because when we found out about the biocrust, we had kids that went up and put in little markers to keep people out of those areas so that the land could heal and grow and get better. And so something like that, where people talk about, especially if they're a little bit older, you could talk about all of the different complexities of those little organisms and how biocrust works and why it's so important, and then talk about, the succession and the healing of the earth. So yeah, there's just kind of a whole bunch of things. If you have any kids that are interested in it, feel free to reach out. Definitely could come up with some ideas. But as Janosha mentioned earlier, really, I think the most important thing is talking about what they are passionate about and what they're enthusiastic about, and seeing if the ways that their interests can align with the things that they care about to make something work. I think that's definitely the best way to start if they're not sure what to do. Yay. All right, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I'm going to give it back to Janosha.
Lauren. I shall change my name back. Oh, I shall not. Oh, thank you, Lauren. That was awesome. I have seen Lauren in action many times, saving wildlife. She's kind of like a superhero, honestly. So please ask if any of your students have a particular interest in wildlife, contact us and take advantage of her offer to share her photos, because it's amazing. Okay, well, we are coming to the end of our training. I had a couple of things that I wanted to share and then was going to leave time for questions. We haven't had a lot of questions so far, so I'll go ahead and share these last few things. Just a couple of suggestions. First suggestion is to make sure at the very beginning to be with your students and have them sign up at the Slingshot Challenge, and then sign up at the Videos for Change website. So it's 2 different signups. I believe Jason has already put the website in there. It's very clear. All of the Slingshot materials online tell you need to do this. And the email that they get from registering is that National Geographic Slingshot will send that student information about the deadlines and like the different what was it called? The workshops I shared earlier, when those things are coming up. The Videos for Change is where the video actually gets stored. So, and it's submitted there. So it's 2 different places that you have to sign up. Make sure that you do that like while they're in your class and you're with them, because then that seems to be a lot easier than me trying to email a kid to do something and then they never respond to me. Also allow yourself time for the parents to say yes, because once they have said yes, you're all good. And if you want, there's even something called the educator dashboard, which I don't have working yet, but there'll be another information that will come out. As an educator, you also can sign up and just put that you're the educator, and then you will get emails from that geo sending you reminders. There are so many different options, ways to help you through this, but that is a key thing, is that your students have to sign up at 2 different places and you have to get parent permission. That can really mess you up. All of the kids, if they're working in a group, they all have to be between the ages of 13 and 18. They're not allowed to have their name on the project if they're under 13 years old. So a couple of ways that we've done a workaround for that is, if you have a younger student that wants to help, then just make 2 versions of the video. Have one version of the video that has their name on it and that you show at your group, you show like at your school, and you give to us for the film festival. The one that they submit to National Geographic cannot have any student under 13 on it, or they will reject the whole video, which also leads to heartbreak. So don't, but we can work around, like with our film festival, you can have kids under 13 participate in that. It just doesn't count for the 6 videos you need for the stipend. I'm trying to think of any other, feel free to jump in, Lauren. Any other suggestions? If there is a young person that really is like struggling to make a video, we had one of our most powerful videos last year was a young woman from Boone County, and she just really wanted to share her feelings about mountaintop removal coal mining, what it was doing to her town. So her mom just filmed her talking for like 55 seconds about what it was doing to her home, and how the thing that she wanted was for more people to know about it. So while this video didn't exactly fit in, to all the things she was supposed to do for Slingshot, it was a very powerful video. And then we showed it at our film festival, and she and her family came up. We participated in the film festival, and it was very powerful. And her video affected a lot of other kids. So, my suggestion also is to think big picture. Also, some of your kids, their videos might not be the exact perfect, in line with National Geographic. Well, we can still submit it, but it might be a video that is going to, increase their confidence, allow them an opportunity to speak their mind, and maybe reach kids through our film festival. That's just a lot. It's just for West Virginia kids. It's much more local. It's a lot more, it's not so overwhelming. It's a lot safer, in terms of not like kids being worried about their idea getting out to the world. Sometimes that feels very scary. And some kids are like, well, let's have it more in our state. Yes.
I wanted to also toss in, speaking of the confidence thing, and making the videos, that a big barrier, definitely, as you mentioned earlier, is that kids do not love speaking publicly.
Yeah.
And so something that might be really helpful is to have a little mini workshop on public speaking and how to talk in front of a maybe increasingly larger group of people when they're practicing and doing their, they have the video, which is a lot of technical stuff, but also confidence goes into public speaking and ways that you can do it. And since a lot of people are already professionals who do a lot of public speaking, or teachers who public speak basically all day, every day,
yeah.
That might be something that you could really help them with, that also would really help in, their future, no matter what they end up going into. They could learn to do those things as well and boost their confidence and talk about how you stand, and maybe learn to ground themselves and belly breathe and all of the cool things that we can do to help kids with their confidence that would be good for other reasons too.
Which goes so well in with robotics and the presentations they have to do. Well, we have a ton of ideas. We have helpful hours that we call them, from 3 to 5 after school right now. And we are very happy to be a resource. And that's what I got. I think we did it. Good job, everybody.
I have one thing to add for another confidence thing, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
So the reason I know to do all this green screen stuff is I did video making for a hobby for like 5 years, and I have a confidence issue. I still do. What I found was really helpful for me was just roll the camera, just let it roll, and just talk about whatever you want, and just exist on the camera for a little bit without having any pressure, without having to worry about any of the subjects you have to talk about, but just talk about whatever you want on a camera and just see how it feels like. And at that point, sometimes you can kind of like, okay, this isn't so bad. I could talk about, I could be on a camera and I can hear my voice. I can see myself. And I found that was really, really helpful for me when I started making videos, just to like not have that, this is the one time, this is the video, I can just keep the camera rolling until I get what I want. So it might help some kids, might not, but that's what helped for me. So
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. You think maybe doing this might go beyond what the resource capacity is for some people, but maybe partnering with somebody else in your community. But if you have kids whose issues stem from like a more, not just that they're nervous to be on camera, but they have self-esteem issues or something that's going on, maybe finding some resources and encouraging them to practice some self-care and self-love and do things to boost their self-esteem overall might really help as well. Because your voice sounds different when you hear it recorded versus when you're speaking it and you're just hearing yourself speak.
Yeah.
And I like when I listen to myself on I left a voicemail, like, oh boy. So I think that maybe just getting them used to that and getting them a little bit more comfortable being kind to themselves and seeing the cool things they have to offer might also be really helpful for some of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for the suggestions, and ending on that note of confidence. Speaking for myself, at least, the primary reason I got interested in the Slingshot videos was because I have a huge crush on National Geographic. I've always had a huge crush on National Geographic, and the idea of getting to work with National Geographic as a school was like a dream come true. And then to be able to extend that opportunity out to kids in our state, and to give them this opportunity to feel like their opinions are being heard at such a large level. I've seen it increase kids' confidence in their own perception on the problems where they live and the ways that they could work together to create solutions. And that's a very hopeful thing. So ending on that note. Todd, do you have anything to add? Okay.